BGS have implied in recent legal documents that their graded cards do not have a guarantee over that grade. Now, this is very alarming with regards to the offering that BGS has for us within the hobby. We're going to talk through this in detail today. I'm going to give you some insights and then hopefully we can chat down in the comments below. Now, if you guys recall, back in December last year, we talked about how Alt basically brought forward a legal dispute to BGS regarding this Steph Curry rookie card. It's a gold refractor version. Now, if you recall, or if you didn't, essentially what occurred, Alt bought this card from someone, they cracked it open trying to get a PSA 10, PSA turned around and said, you know what, the card's trimmed, we can't grade it. Now, Alt have turned around and basically said back to BGS, what the heck are you guys doing? Because, you know, we bought this card because you guys said it was a 9.5. It's been trimmed. You owe us the money for the purchase of this card because you implied that the card was free from error, right? You provided a guarantee over that card. Now we're basically SOL, crap out of luck, because we bought a card that's worthless because it's been trimmed. Now, we discussed at the time that it's a pretty interesting one, right? Because from BGS's perspective, how are they going to get comfort that the card wasn't damaged? You know, when it was cracked out of the slab, how do they get comfort that it's the actual same card? So on and so forth. Like, how do they know there's no hanky-panky going on? And given that the fact that this is still proceeded for the next couple of months, it obviously looks like this might actually go to court and the dispute can still go ahead, and that they themselves, as in Alt, have comfort that the card hasn't been swapped out, right? Maybe they've got video recordings, so on and so forth. But the reason why I'm updating you all on this again today is because BGS have essentially turned around and are trying to imply that the card they've graded, given that it was graded in 2016 and Alt didn't exist until 2022, they don't basically owe them a guarantee because they didn't exist at the time of the card being graded. They weren't a tangible, you know, entity to try and make this kind of claim. They didn't exist. They weren't around. So therefore, BGS don't owe them a guarantee. And Paul Lesko from Twitter sums this up, you know, pretty well. Where basically highlights this exact point, right, where he talks about, now to blow up this case, Beckett argues that one, Alt did not exist until 2022, so it's the wrong party to raise a claim against BGS. And two, that the limited group, basically within Texas, has a negligent misrepresentation policy or law, and that basically allows BGS to sort of get away with doing what they want in this specific instance. But you can sort of see here that in Beckett's legal documents, they've said, judicially noticing that Alt was not formed until 2022 and could not have acted or relied upon a 2016 representation to make on an October 2020 purchase. The card was graded in 2016. Basically, Alt have no rights to try and make a claim in this instance. And like Paul, you know, flags down here, this is pretty alarming for any, you know, entities that have been created during the boom that might have cards like this in their inventory. And if this lawsuit does go ahead and basically BGS sort of get away with making this kind of statement, that means those guys have no recourse for getting, you know, any, what's the word I'm looking for, compensation if a card is turned out to be made, like BGS have made a mistake, right? BGS have stuffed up, they've graded a fake card, you've bought it, they don't owe you a guarantee. And Paul goes on to also talk about how it might also indicate if somebody's born after a card was graded, does this imply that they can't then get some recourse if they purchase that card and it turns out, you know, the grader made a mistake? And it's a very alarming situation, in my opinion, because if you lose this kind of guarantee, or if there's some hanky-panky going on between loopholes and jumping over hurdles and things like that to try and save their backside, and Alt misses out, what are the wider ramifications for us within the hobby? How many graded cards are out there sitting in people's collections that, you know, these graders may have made a mistake on, because mistakes are perfectly not acceptable to happen, but they're bound to happen when you're pumping out that many cards, right? And you, just the average Joe, happen to be born after a card was graded, or you have a business, you've got a local card shop, you've got a group submitting service or something along those lines going, sorry about that, my phone was ringing, but basically you have a business, you have some kind of offering within the hobby, and then now you have no recourse for compensation. You've put all this money into your business, you've been caught out by one of these graders by basically them making a mistake, and a precedent has been set, you know, in this Alt instance, which it hasn't happened yet, right? It's still basically legal mumbo jumbo, nothing's gone ahead yet, but you can understand the ramifications that could be there for you as a collector or a, you know, a business owner, where you now have compensation if they've made a mistake. I think it's a bit scary. I don't think, it just seems a bit weird. I can't see something like this going through the system, right? Like, it just seems a bit weird to try and make that argument. Now, often when these kinds of things happen, you throw a few arguments in there to try and pad everything else. So this might just be in there to try and push some of the discussion there and do some kind of lawyery, you know, circle jerk kind of thing that often happens in the courtroom. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen, right? Because let's say hypothetically this does go ahead. This is not a good thing for the hobby, in my opinion. Like, it's just shocking that you could have a business to operate on this scale and then them to turn around and do something like this with regards to their guarantee. Now, it goes back to the things I spoke about with regards to baseball card exchange. You know, over 12 months ago, 18 months ago, 2 years ago, whenever this Logan Paul stuff happened, right? They don't offer a guarantee, but they're upfront about it, right? Their policy very clearly states, their T's and C's clearly state that they do not offer a guarantee. The same does not apply for Beckett. So I'm curious to see, like I said, how that's going to transpire moving forward. So it's going to be a watch this space kind of thing. I think like anything, right, when it comes to this hobby, just be overly cautious when you're, you know, purchasing cards, when you're trying to financially expose yourself to owning these kinds of assets, because that's what they are at the end of the day. You know, I've spoken about many times, you know, my approach to owning cards is to buy things, you know, and try and get a $0 cost base, right? So I buy things, I sell and flip, you know, other cards to make sure that the cards that are sitting in my PC technically cost me $0, right? And by that I mean if a card costs me $100, I then buy a few other cards and sell those to get a $100 profit. That $100 profit covers, you know, the purchase of my PC card. I do that for a few different reasons. But one of those is for instances like this, right? Because if something was to ever happen along the lines of this, yes, you know, technically I'm out because I could have still sold that card for profit. But given that I've already made my money back, nothing can really happen moving forward, right? So it's a pretty interesting situation. Please share your thoughts on this down in the comments below, because again, it's very alarming, the potential ramifications of this. I think it's a very weird game that BGS look like they're trying to play. Now, I would have thought this case would have just been thrown out the door purely off the fact that, you know, they've cracked it open, right? How do they know it wasn't damaged when the slab was cracked? Unless it's completely recorded, I don't think Alt has a case to answer in this specific instance. But again, let's sort of watch this space. I just thought I wanted to give you that update because that argument that BGS is trying to make has huge ramifications for us within the hobby, and it's something we need to seriously, you know, keep an eye on, because it could impact the average Joe all the way up to the local business, right? Because as Paul Lesko does state, if you create a business after a card was graded, or you were born after a card was graded, technically you could fall into this bucket of you essentially not being the party that BGS provided the guarantee over because you weren't around when the card was graded. Again, very, very alarming, but watch this space and let's see how things go. Please drop a like and a follow. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I truly appreciate all your, you know, views. And also leave a comment down below so we can have a detailed chat as always. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Sorry, I just want to jump in again here. It looks like there was some news today regarding potentially another loaded box out at Backyard Breaks. Sports Card Radio look like they're going to talk to that in their live stream tomorrow. It's going to be the same day, a few hours after you're watching this video when this drops. So sort of watch this space kind of thing. I feel like I say that kind of topic all the time, but basically the owner, or one of the owners of Backyard Breaks, one of the head breakers as well, bought into his own break that he was busting, and he hit a logo man. I can't recall who the player was, you know, off the top of my head, but it's just not a good look. Very curious things ahead, lots of talking points there. So we'll see what Sports Card Radio have to say in tomorrow's video, or the video you're going to see after this, their live stream, and then I'll likely talk about it in my weekly news video for this week, because it is, again, some pretty big news out of Backyard Breaks, pretty big news out of the hobby. Loaded boxes, that discussion point seems to continually be brought up. Whether or not they're happening is anyone's guess, right? We're never going to have any proof on it, but like I said, it's not a good look to see that kind of thing, you know, happening when you're buying into your own break. That's when you start raising lots of questions. This almost goes to, you know, those repack situations where you happen to have a friend of the person selling the repack, or the owner themselves getting, you know, the hit that was in their repack that was never actually sold to customers. Obviously, this is a very different thing to that, but it has the same sort of tone or potential, you know, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory associated with it. So let's see what they've got to say, and I'll keep you updated, you know, in my news video in a few days. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.